The July sun bore down on Miami with the kind of heat that made the air shimmer above the pavement. Outside the sleek, glass-fronted convention hall, the candy-red Ferrari gleamed under the sunlight like a jewel in a crown. It wasn't just any Ferrari, it was a rare model flown in from Italy for the luxury auto show, the type of car most people would never see outside a glossy magazine. People lingered near it, their designer sunglasses reflecting its flawless curves. But beneath the hood, something wasn't right, and the energy of the crowd carried a hum of curiosity and doubt. Inside the hall, the air was heavy with the smell of expensive cologne, polished leather, and freshly brewed coffee from the VIP lounge. Clusters of men in tailored suits and women in high heels gathered around the stalled Ferrari, murmuring about its mysterious failure. The display lights bounced off its perfect red paint, but the silence of its engine was deafening. A group of top mechanics, each wearing branded coveralls, had taken turns inspecting it. One by one, they stepped back with defeated shrugs. "It's impossible to fix without shipping it to Italy," one said, his voice laced with frustration and embarrassment. At the back of the crowd, Olivia Harper watched with a smirk that could cut glass. The 20-year-old daughter of a real estate tycoon, she was used to being surrounded by perfection, by things that worked without flaw. Her dark hair was pulled into a sleek ponytail, and the diamond studs in her ears caught the light every time she tilted her head. "If they can't fix it, no one can," she said, loud. Enough for those around her to hear. A few people laughed politely, eager to align themselves with her confidence. It was the kind of room where status was currency, and Olivia carried plenty. Near the service entrance, a man in plain navy work clothes quietly watched the scene. Carl, the building's janitor, had been cleaning up empty water bottles and sweeping the floors all morning. His hands were rough, his back slightly stooped from years of labor, but his eyes were sharp. Beside him stood his daughter, Maya, 17 years old, with her dark hair in a messy braid and a pair of grease-stained jeans that had seen better days. She wasn't here to impress anyone, she had only come to bring her father lunch during his shift. But when she heard the words, "impossible to fix," her eyes flicked toward the Ferrari with interest. "Mind if I take a look?" Maya asked, stepping forward with a calmness that belied her age. Conversations around her faltered. Olivia raised a perfectly groomed eyebrow and let out a short, amused laugh. "You? Sure," she said, stepping aside as though granting a child permission to play with a toy. The surrounding guests watched with smirks, their expressions saying the same thing. This would be amusing at best. Carl stood just behind his daughter, his jaw tightening slightly. He'd seen her take apart and rebuild engines in their cramped garage at home. But this was different. This was in front of people who believed she didn't belong. Maya slung her worn canvas backpack to the floor and crouched beside the car. She pulled out a small set of tools, each piece worn smooth from use. The bright lights above cast a gleam over her steady hands as she popped the hood. The murmurs in the crowd grew louder, whispers of disbelief, snickers of doubt. But Maya's expression never changed. She didn't rush. Her fingers traced the lines of the engine like a pianist, familiarizing herself with the keys, every movement deliberate. Somewhere in the crowd, a man in a pinstripe suit muttered, "This is ridiculous," but Maya ignored them all. Within minutes, the sound of small, precise clicks filled the air. She adjusted a few connections, checked a component most mechanics had skipped over, and tightened a bolt with quick, practiced motions. Sweat trickled down her temple, but she didn't pause. Carl shifted his weight, torn. Between pride and worry, he wanted her to succeed, but he also knew how unforgiving this audience could be. Olivia leaned casually against a display stand, arms crossed, her smirk never fading, but there was a flicker in her eyes now. Curiosity, maybe, or the faintest doubt that she had judged too quickly. Maya leaned back, her work done. She gave the starter a try. At first there was only a faint hum, and someone in the crowd chuckled. Then came the sound. The deep, throaty roar of the Ferrari's engine springing back to life. The noise filled the hall, bouncing off the glass walls like a declaration. Heads snapped toward the car. A man in a mechanic's uniform muttered, "No way," under his breath. The crowd's skepticism melted into surprise, then into applause. People moved closer, craning their necks to get a better view of the teenager who had just done what seasoned professionals couldn't. Carl's shoulders relaxed, and he let out a breath he didn't realize he'd been holding. Maya stepped back, wiping her hands on a rag she'd pulled from her pocket. She didn't smile, at least, not right away. She simply looked at the engine with quiet satisfaction, as if she'd had a private conversation with it, and they'd come to an understanding. Olivia's smirk had vanished entirely, replaced by something else, something she wasn't used to feeling. It wasn't embarrassment exactly, but it was close. She pushed off the display stand and approached, her designer heels clicking against the polished floor. "How did you," Olivia began, then stopped herself. Her tone softened, the arrogance thinning just a little. "That was impressive." The words felt foreign in her mouth, but she meant them. Maya glanced at her father, then back at Olivia. "It's just an engine," she said simply. "If you listen, it tells you what it needs." The simplicity of her explanation hung in the air, heavier than any technical breakdown could have been. Olivia studied her for a moment, then extended her hand. "I guess I was wrong about you." Maya hesitated, then shook it, her grip firm. The applause hadn't died down yet. People were pulling out their phones, filming the girl in grease-stained jeans, standing next to the flawless Ferrari. A photographer from the Miami Herald stepped forward, snapping shots that would later appear under headlines like "Teen Mechanic Stuns Luxury Auto Show Crowd." Carl stayed a few steps back, his pride almost tangible, though his eyes were misty. He knew this wasn't just about fixing a car, it was about proving something bigger. In a room full of people who measured worth in wealth and status, Maya had spoken a language they couldn't ignore: skill. Even as the crowd thinned, small groups lingered, wanting to ask Maya questions. She answered politely but briefly, her eyes scanning for her backpack. Carl knew she wasn't comfortable in the spotlight. She preferred the quiet hum of an engine over the buzz of attention. Olivia stood nearby, her arms crossed, but no longer in defense, more in thought. She was re-evaluating everything she'd assumed when she first saw Maya. In this gleaming hall of million-dollar cars and power-dressed elites, the person who had stolen the day wasn't on the guest list, and somehow Olivia couldn't stop thinking about that. The cheer from the crowd rolled across the parking lot like a wave, washing over Maya until she felt almost dizzy. She could still hear the Ferrari's purr behind her, steady and proud, as if the machine itself appreciated being understood. Her fingers tingled from the tools, but it was a good ache, the kind that reminded her she had done something worthwhile. She caught her father's smile from a few feet away, his eyes glistening, as though he had just seen his daughter for the first time. Not as a kid, but as someone who could take on the world. Olivia stepped forward slowly, her designer heels clicking against the polished pavement. The disbelief in her expression was melting into something else, a cautious admiration. Her voice was soft, almost hesitant, as she asked, "How did you do that?" Maya shrugged, her eyes meeting Olivia's without flinching. "It's just an engine. It tells you what it needs if you listen," she said. It wasn't arrogance, it was truth. Carl crossed his arms, hiding his pride behind a quiet grin, but everyone could feel it radiating from him. Reporters pushed closer, cameras flashing like strobe lights. Microphones appeared from every direction, voices overlapping with questions. "How long have you been working on cars? Are you certified? Will you fix mine next?" Maya felt the swirl of attention pressing in, but she didn't flinch. Carl shifted uncomfortably, his protective instincts kicking in. "Give her some room," he said firmly, stepping, between his daughter and the nearest reporter. Still, the curiosity didn't die down, and Maya found herself in the middle of something she never expected. Olivia took a step closer, ignoring the media frenzy around them. Her cheeks carried a faint pink flush, and her tone carried a weight that made the noise around them fade. "I underestimated you," she admitted. "How would you like a job?" The offer hung in the air like a sudden spark. Maya glanced toward her father instinctively, her eyes searching his for guidance. Carl gave her a small nod, but he didn't speak. This was her decision to make. "Only if it's on my terms," Maya replied, a grin tugging at the corner of her mouth. A murmur rippled through the crowd, some impressed, some surprised by her boldness. Olivia arched an eyebrow, clearly not used to negotiation, but there was no annoyance in her gaze. Instead, there was a flicker of intrigue. "Fair enough," she said. "Let's talk." Carl watched the exchange quietly, feeling the shift. His daughter was no longer just the janitor's kid. They moved away from the noise toward a quieter corner of the lot. Olivia's security detail lingered a few steps back, while Carl stayed close enough to hear. "There's a racing team in New York that owes me a favor," Olivia said. "One of the most prestigious in the country. I could get you an internship paid, with training, travel, everything you need to learn from the best." Maya hesitated. "Why me?" Olivia smiled faintly. "Because you see engines the way artists see paintings. That's rare." The idea of working with a racing team sounded like a dream, but it also felt too big, too fast. Maya thought about her school schedule, her job helping her dad on weekends, and the life she knew. "I'd have to talk to my dad," she said. Olivia nodded without hesitation. "Of course, no pressure." That simple respect earned Olivia a little more of Maya's trust. Carl, listening, felt a warmth in his chest, not just pride, but relief that someone saw his daughter for who she truly was. The rest of the afternoon blurred into a stream of photos, handshakes, and congratulations. The Ferrari's owner insisted Maya sign the hood with a silver marker, "So I can tell people who saved her," he said. Maya laughed, embarrassed but honored. Carl helped her pack up her tools, his rough hands careful with the worn backpack that had seen countless late nights in their small garage. "You handled yourself well," he murmured. "Better than I could have at your age." She smiled, knowing that meant more than any job offer. By evening, the sun was sinking into the horizon, casting the Miami skyline in gold. Maya and Carl began their walk home, the noise of the event fading behind them. Oh, they didn't have a Ferrari or even a car that didn't rattle on every bump, but they had something better: respect, earned in front of people who would never forget her name. Carl reached over and ruffled her hair like he used to when she was little. "Proud of you, kid," he said quietly. Maya's chest tightened with gratitude. The next morning, the phone rang before breakfast. It was Olivia, following through on her word. She had already contacted the racing team's head engineer, who wanted to speak with Maya that afternoon. "You can decline," Olivia said, "but I think you should hear him out." Maya's stomach twisted with excitement and nerves. Carl insisted on coming with her, even if just to sit in the lobby. "You're not going into this alone," he said, his voice firm in that protective way she had known all her life. The call with the racing team lasted nearly an hour. The engineer, a grey-haired man named Lewis, asked her about her approach to diagnostics, her experience, and her ability to improvise under pressure. Maya answered honestly. She didn't hide her lack of formal training, but she made it clear she learned fast. By the end of the conversation, Lewis was chuckling. "You remind me of myself at your age only. Better with a wrench," he said. "We could use someone like you in the pit." It felt unreal, but it was happening. 2 weeks later, Maya and Carl flew to New York for her first day. The team's garage smelled of oil, rubber, and determination. High-tech tools lined the walls, and engines in various states of assembly gleamed under bright lights. The crew welcomed her cautiously, unsure of what to expect from a teenager in grease-stained jeans. But when she diagnosed a tricky fuel injection issue in under 15 minutes, skepticism shifted to respect. Carl watched from the sidelines, his chest swelling every time he caught one of them glancing at her with newfound admiration. Life became a whirlwind. Maya balanced training sessions, test drives, and late-night calls with her dad back home. She missed their small garage, the comfort of working side by side in the quiet, but she also felt herself growing, learning from the best, pushing her limits. Olivia checked in occasionally, sometimes with advice, sometimes just to see how she was doing. It surprised Maya how much she appreciated those calls. Maybe first impressions weren't everything after all. People could change their minds, and so could she. Months later, the team entered a major championship. Maya wasn't just fetching tools anymore. She was in the pit crew, making calls on adjustments mid-race. The roar of engines shook the ground, and every decision mattered. When their car crossed the finish line first, the victory wasn't just for the driver, it was for every hand that had touched the machine, including hers. Carl was there in the stands, tears in his eyes, knowing this was only the beginning. His little girl was making her mark on the world. After the celebration, Maya found a quiet moment to stand by the car, her hand resting on the still warm hood. Olivia appeared beside her, dressed less like a heiress and more like someone who belonged in the garage. "Told you you'd fit in," she said with a small smile. Maya laughed softly. "I guess you were right." Olivia's eyes softened. "No, you made yourself fit in. All I did was open a door you were already ready to walk." The honesty in her words made the moment feel real. Back in Miami, the auto show crowd still talked about the day the janitor's daughter fixed the impossible Ferrari. The story had spread beyond the city, online videos, articles, even interviews with Carl about raising a daughter with grit and skill. Their small apartment didn't change much, but their lives had. Maya had offers, opportunities, and most importantly, the confidence to choose her path. Carl, watching her step into the future, knew his job wasn't to hold her back. It was to make sure she never doubted she belonged. One evening, months after the race, Maya sat in their old garage, wiping her hands on a rag as Carl closed up shop. "You ever think about that day?" she asked. "Every day," he replied. She smiled, thinking about the crowd, the roar of the Ferrari, and the way her life had turned on a single choice to step forward. "Guess some engines just need the right person to listen," she said. Carl grinned. "And some people do too." They switched off the lights, stepping into the night, ready for whatever came next.